Hello, you're about to listen to part one of two, a special episode featuring Jason Ager. In part one of this episode, Miss Chrissy and I will be talking to Jason mostly about his music and his EP release show and album that just came out. And then Miss Chrissy had to leave, so the second half of the episode, which will be released as part two, features myself and Jason talking about technology and the music business. I think it's a fascinating discussion. You're definitely going to want to check that episode out when it's released. But for now, enjoy part one, a discussion with Jason Ager.
Translucent new crusaders with no agenda, no agenda.
Hey, I'm Miss Chrissy.
And I'm Steve.
And this is JAGcast, episode number 148, the podcast of the Jenkintown Arts Garage.
Where we explore the intersection of the arts and technology. And today, today we have a returning guest, if you can understand what I'm saying, because I'm still fighting a sinus infection, like half the world seems to be this week. But we are returning guest to the pod, Jason Ager, who I recently saw at, well, I guess it's Death of the Fox Brewery. Well, we're going to find out if that's the right name. At an amazing coffee shop / brewery where we had a CD release party. And it was a lot of fun. Chrissy was not there. So I have a photo that I will share so you have a sense of how good it was. And he has I guess we're going to talk about the new album and whatever else comes up. Right, Chrissy?
Yep. Let's do it. I like the album. I enjoyed it this morning.
So let's welcome Jason Ager back to the show. What is this, like the third time?
Hey, yeah, I think it is.
Fourth time? I don't know.
Maybe fourth time. I can't remember.
It's
always a blast talking to you guys.
Awesome.
Yeah, the last episode was this episode 143.
Yeah. I was telling you last time I saw you, a friend of mine from Austria was watching, and he had like all kinds of thoughts about it too. You know, it was interesting, kind of like his perspective a little bit on the whole thing. You know, being overseas in a different kind of different environment, different approach to AI, I guess. So it was just a couple thoughts he had, but it was cool that he was watching. So you guys have somebody watching in Austria.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's on our website, JenkintownArtsGarage.com.
There you go.
Yeah. So this was that was a few months ago, and so that I saw on my calendar that you were going to be at some coffee shop brewery place in Jersey. And so I decided I was gonna go down there see you on your CD release show, and it was, I didn't realize it was like a Friday night shore traffic.
Yeah.
So it was like an hour and a half to get there and like less than an hour to get home. It's crazy, but it's
not that far, but as a crow flies, as they say, it's very a short ride, but trying to get through, across one of the bridges and then certain areas of 42 is like. It's a mess, and like that whole area is all torn up with construction. And I think it will be for the rest of my natural life. It's just it's never going to be finished.
I don't have pictures of the whole place because I don't want to go like photographing everybody in there. But I did get this photo, if you're watching, of you guys, the little stage area set up, and it was a lot of fun. And you guys played through your entire album.
Yep.
And can you tell me a little bit about this venue? Because this is kind of a unique place, right?
Yeah, I'm super curious. Like, do you know why it's called that?
It has to do with, from what I gather, it has to do with kind of like the old steeplechasing, like with horses.
Oh, okay.
Like they would have like fox hunts. That's what it was. Like you have hounds on a fox. Like that was kind of the old British thing. I don't know exactly why he chose that. But yeah, it's I'll have to ask him someday. And I'm friends with the owner, Chuck. He's a good guy. So that's what it has to do with. It's a hound that hounds on a fox kind of thing.
The hunting culture type thing.
Oh. Yeah, I don't know why. I don't think he's a hunter or anything like that. I don't know why he chose that name, but it's like the
British. I don't know.
The end of the hunt is the death of the fox. Like they catch the fox. They put the hounds on them kind of thing, and like people ride along with their horses. And that's where like the sport of steeplechasing comes to us. Like the the horse riding when they jump over stuff and that kind of thing. I think that they're connected, you know, with that like old school style of hunting. So that I think that's where it comes from. Like there are pictures of, if you look at the picture behind us on the wall there, and like around the brewery, there are like these pictures of like, you know, horsemen, you know, or horse people on, you know, chasing after a fox with dogs and stuff like that. So that's kind of where it comes from. But the reason why he chose that, I don't know. I'm not sure.
That's interesting.
He's got another location in my town, in Glassboro, and that's called on the grounds or something like that. And that's just exclusively a coffee house. They have like pastries and stuff for breakfast, which we'll go there once in a while. This place, I always liked it because it was like this combination between like coffee house and brewery. You know, like I remember going. I don't know if you guys do, like when you were kids, like we like going to coffee houses. You know what I mean? Like it was at a certain time, the '90s, early 2000s, people went to coffee houses and like, you know, hung out, had coffee and whatever, you know. And then like I feel, I mean, this might be a little bit not exactly the timeline, but like because of like the rise of like the on the go like coffee thing, you know, like between like Dunkin' Donuts and Wawa, Starbucks, it's like it's all about like that efficiency and speed. Like no one goes and sits at a coffee house anymore.
Yeah, I used to go to a place called Proof Rock out in Lambertville, and it was like, you know,
same idea.
Yeah, same idea. And they had like games, you know what I mean? Like if you wanted to sit there and like play checkers or something, you could do that. But it was like it was like, oh, what are we gonna do today? Let's go to Proof Rock and like sit there for an hour. You know what I mean? I mean, that was a very long time ago. But
I mean, I always remember that movie, So I Married an Axe Murder. Remember that movie with Mike Myers? And it's like the beginning of the movie is like set in like the coffee houses in like Seattle. Like that was like a thing, you know. And like not that Philly had a huge coffee house scene. It had a little one, but like you could go and play in coffee houses, and there was like room for that space, you know. Like, or like for example, like the Milk Boys, you know, like on the main line, they were like just coffee house. They weren't you know, venues where you could buy alcohol. Now the new Milk Boy is, yeah, sure, but it's like, you know, the original ones were coffee houses. And those were some of the places where like I played a lot. So I've always liked Death of the Fox for that reason, because it has that a little bit of a coffee house vibe. Yeah.
Well, I think your album probably lends itself to that vibe. Like I listened to it this morning, and it's definitely less like, I mean, you always have like a bluegrass country twang to it, but it's definitely like way more country than rock.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I kind of, as I was saying to the guy who helped us produce it and recorded it, like, and it's kind of like getting back to my roots in a lot of ways. Like, not that I was like born to and bred to play country music, but my, you know, my father, like, you know, and then like having lost my dad this past year, like it was a lot of, you know, thinking about, at least in me, like deep down, I don't know how like conscious it was, but like now that I put it out, I've kind of like leaned into that world again. You know, I grew up listening to like these artists, you know, like these country artists like Eddie Arnold and you know, what's his face? Hoagie Carmichael, all these like original old school country artists. And my uncle Dick was actually a national recording artist. And he recorded, or he wrote the song Sioux City Sue, which has been recorded by like Gene Autry and Willie Nelson, you name it, like all the old school, you know, original kind of outlaw country, you know, cowboys. Yeah. So like it was very much a cowboy song. And it's weird because like we're from Philadelphia, like our whole family. Although we have some redneck roots down in Snow Hill, Maryland, but you know, like we're from this area, but we always kind of like really, you know, dug into the country music vibe thing. So this is, you know, a little bit different insofar as I'm leaning a little heavier into like the bluegrass element, the folky side of things.
Yeah, I heard it. Yeah,
but
I love the stand-up bass, man.
Yeah, it's fun, right?
Guys were pretty good. Yeah,
Tom's great. He plays in my regular trio, like the rock trio, and he just picked up the upright a couple years ago, and he's been really improving a lot on it. I'm so impressed by his musicianship. And Bob, who plays the fiddle and the mandolin, he's like he's nationally known, you know, kind of. There's a video out there him playing next to Chris Thile,
Oh, wow.
them taking mandolin solos back and forth. And it's like, wow, okay. So he's got some
Wow.
pretty impressive chops. The fact these guys want to play with me makes me feel really good, feel good about myself a little bit. So yeah, the record's, kind of like you said, it fits in that kind of coffee house vibe, like the original folk world. Like if you went to like the Bitter End in New York, right, you
Yeah.
might have heard, you might have heard like Dylan one night, but you might have heard bluegrass the next night. You might have heard, like folk the other night, so it's kind of like it kind of fits in that, you're right, in that coffee house kind of world, the folk world.
Yeah, that like small artist, like
Yeah.
duo, trio,
Yep.
singer-songwriter type thing.
Exactly. Yeah, it's kind of, it definitely fits into that vibe. And that's hopefully where I want to, be playing as many shows as I can these days. It's kind of, and you're seeing, I think, on a larger level too, like, the big clubs and everything are struggling right now to kind of stay open and do what they're doing. You're seeing it left and right with, these huge artists canceling, stadium tours.
Yeah.
But these small DIY spaces are becoming, a place where you can kind of see some really great music. And, with our like release party, I kind of wanted it to be that. I wanted it to be kind of laid back and just kind of celebrate the record with everybody who was going to make it out, So it was very much more of for me, it was more like a celebratory kind of vibe. I've done other kind of CD release shows, like at the North Star back in the day, and a lot of different other venues, World Cafe Lot. That was always a big, like, it was very stressful. It was like, gotta sell tickets, gotta do blah 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 blah. And this was like far more of a party, and I liked that vibe. It was kind of fun, and it was kind of fun to do it at a place that wasn't just like a bar or a specific venue. It had that coffee house vibe, kind of.
You had a lot of kids there too. Like,
Yeah, it was
was
kind of like open to everybody,
Yeah.
So like when I was listening to your record, it was like you kind of got I don't know, maybe I'm reading into it, but like a hint of the sense, and that like your ideas of what you want musically may have shifted.
I guess. Yeah, I mean,
or like you said, like more like I don't know, like instead of like playing the big club, it's like,
yeah.
I
think you're right. Yeah, it was definitely meant to feel. How do you like? It's good. I mean, I wanted to feel very live.
I don't know. It's a weird word.
No,
I can't find the word.
I think you're right. No, the last couple, I'm working on one right now. Currently, it's the same kind of, it's the same world. It's very folk oriented. And we consciously chose to not put drums on it or any like electric instruments. It's all very stripped down, and that you're right in that regard. It's like very much, a kind of small club, small, venue type of vibe, like almost like a campfire kind of feel, and I think we're making that choice partly because I'm not a spring chicken anymore, but I think for me there feels like a lot more opportunity in that world. Like doing and like I said, like some of these big clubs, it's really hard to get, at least for me at my stage in the game, it's kind of hard to get some spaces there because, as these big clubs start closing, some of these smaller clubs are picking up the slack. They're getting more.
Like
they're
people with
getting
a
bigger draws, right? So like
Yeah.
it's become a little trickier, I think, to work with some of like the stalwart, Philly venues. Not that I still don't do it, we still, play, places like Broken Goblet or whatever, we'll be at the Royal in the fall. But even that's a small venue.
Yeah, that's like a very
100
intimate
person.
space. You know what I mean? It's got
So,
like
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah.
It reminds me of like post college for some reason.
Right.
Like,
Yeah,
in a good way. I like, those were fun times.
and that's like a community space in many ways. It's a it's a nonprofit venue, kind of like the Kennett Flash down in Kennett Square. So like those kind of things are becoming more and more on my radar. I think it's also a thing about like recognizing who's listening to what you're putting out, or like just the general age group of like the of the listener. Like I can't hide the fact that I'm aging too, right? And that's I'm not ashamed of that. I'm okay with that. You have to kind of figure out, if your crowd is kind of aging as well, do they want to go to, Johnny
Yeah, that's true.
Brenda's to see a
Right.
show? Yeah, maybe they will. Some folks will, but you're going to cut out large
Right. People are
swaths
like,
of your.
oh, that's like too much and
Yeah,
parking and what a
right.
pain
Yeah,
in the ass
exactly.
Philly it is. And
Right.
it's
And I don't.
wild and yeah.
Yeah, I don't mind doing that stuff, but like I just was over in Philly checking out a band a couple weeks ago. I love doing that kind of stuff, but not everybody our age, my age, wants to do that. So like I feel like giving other kinds of opportunities to hear music, whatever, is a good thing. And like I've always tried to be as eclectic as possible with the music I put out. If you look at what I released this year, there's like highly produced, almost hip hop influenced, stuff like, the couple singles I put out at the beginning of the year to this stuff, it's a wide breadth of styles and genres. And I've always just really loved all kinds of music, but this stuff, what the most recent stuff is very, it's very like personal, like
Yeah, that was the word Steve
Yeah.
saw it in my note. That was like literally one of the words I wrote,
Yeah.
like very personal.
It is. Yeah. I mean, like a lot of it's like thinking about, and, raising kids, like that's.
Oh
part of it.
man, so I, have
Yeah.
kids. I mean, mine I think are a little bit older than yours, but
Yeah. I mean,
it is not for the faint of heart. I will tell you.
not in this day and age either. Like it's just, and like my wife and I were reading an article the other day. She sent it over to me, and she's a psychologist, so she kind of comes to it from a very specific perspective. Like she's very much into the mental health world. And it was like, how do you offer spaces for like kids to decompress and, because like whether we, can, come from a different like political perspectives or whatever, but like it seems to be the trend right now that kids are like full of anxiety, whatever the reason might be, like having lived through a pandemic or the increased amount of time online is seeing, other people's images on Insta, whatever the issue might be. It seems like they're facing like these moments of anxiety a lot more than you and I probably did as we were growing up.
I 120% agree. And
Yeah.
not only do I see that with my own kids, but I also see it because I work with young kids.
Right. Yeah. You're a teacher, right?
So, it's crazy. Like I have this one family, and they've been with me since pre-COVID.
Yeah.
And I've had all three of their children. They have like a son who's in high school. They have a daughter who's like 10, who's been with, like, she danced in her patio with like her cat running around all through COVID. Like she stuck it out. And then they have a younger one, and she's just turning 5 and entering kindergarten. And the anxiety in kids that are entering, like as a whole, because I teach a lot of kids around that age, like way more than not of those children are incredibly anxious and have very little confidence in themselves. It's
completely
crazy.
my experience. That is completely my experience. And so I think a lot of my writing comes from thinking about not necessarily like as I was a kid kind of thing, but it's more like thinking about how do I do this and do this right? Like there's no handbook.
No, I wish there was, man. Wait till you have older kids.
Well,
it's easier.
The book that's really been making the rounds lately is Jonathan Haidt's latest book, The Anxious Generation. I mean, his view about this, if you read like the blurb here, I mean, to oversimplify it, is that play-based childhood, as he calls it, began to decline in the 80s and is replaced with a phone-based childhood. He has a lot of focus on phones being the center of a lot of this problem. I mean, I think it is like a larger philosophical problem with our general culture besides just the phones, but the phones definitely exacerbate it. And like he has some recommendations that I think are very reasonable, like no phones in school, no social media before I think like age 16 or something like that. Right, the idea is you got to you want to get through like the hardest part of puberty before you start introducing these mechanisms, which then can have these negative reinforcing feedback cycles like social media often does. and he's a big proponent of kids, younger kids being able to explore and go outside and free range parenting, I think they call it.
Yeah.
Basically
Very European, man. That's a very
well, I mean,
European thing.
the standard 90s childhood where like I would leave the house all day, parents had no
Right.
idea where I was, and they just come back for dinner,
I
ride a bike.
I know what you mean. I used to play across the street in the Pennypack Creek, like
Yeah.
be out there for hours. Like I don't know what parent in like our little town of Pittman here in New Jersey would let their kid go play down in the lake all day long and like not sweat about it, or like.
Yeah.
So part of it's like,
or
what
not
we're
check
doing.
where their location
Yeah.
was
And-
on their phone. I do not have, like, out of principle, I was like, I'm not going to track you. But although sometimes it seems like it would be convenient, but
Right.
I was like,
That's-
I just,
That's a bold
like,
and
it is bold.
admirable.
People are like, I don't know if it's the right decision anymore, but
No, it's admirable. I come from that kind of vibe. Like I want that kind of freedom for like the kids or whatever. And my son's 12, so like it's a little bit. He's kind of getting that age where he wants to go around and we let him kind of go around town. But like, I mean, I even hear myself sometimes, and he'll attest to it. I'm like, "Where's your phone? Where's your watch? Are both things on you?" Like, I'm kind of like, and I'm part of the problem sometimes. And like I don't know where that comes from. It's like a lot of like the writing I'm doing these days comes from like a perspective of parenting, and I'm pretty open with him about like the fact that I'm not perfect. Like I'm gonna get stuff wrong. There's that element. But the thing that I think is showing up in the music that is very personal these days. Like what I'm saying is coming from my real experience, and the couple tracks on the record, kind of speak to that. I think
they're all very personal. I felt like like very story driven. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, and I've always been a good storyteller.
Like, it definitely had a feeling to them, which like a human feeling, not just like a vibe.
Well, I appreciate that. I like that perspective on them. Yeah, I feel the same way about them. They definitely come from a place of, and part of it's influenced by the genre too. There's it's stereotypical, but there's a lot of room in country music or folk music to kind of tell those kind of stories. Whereas, when I'm putting out more,
like a rock thing or whatever,
or like hip hop produced stuff, like unless you're Kendrick Lamar, it's hard to tell those kind of same stories in the same type of way, or at least I struggle with it. Maybe some people are a lot better at it, but for me, like those genres, it's more hooky. It's more like based upon creating the vibe. This is more about me trying to relay kind of an emotion to you, and in that way, it's like freeing. And the response that I've had to a couple of the songs has been really, really positive. And I'm glad, for that. Could I have written this stuff though 20 years ago when I started out? Absolutely freaking not. Like it's just not.
Just don't have those experiences or that, like,
Exactly. So like, I think you're completely correct in like assessing it the way it is. It feels very personal, and it feels very much from where I'm at right now, It
feels like very human. I don't know how else to describe it, but
Yeah, no, I agree. It's like these, and it's kind of reflected in the music too. It's all stripped down. We played it completely live, which was a new thing for me. Like usually in the studio, even since like our first record, like it was always like impressed upon us, like you got to play to a click track, got to play to a metronome, you got to like have it in the headphones, like, and there's something about that is very effective if you're going to create super slick, highly produced stuff. Like if you're going to be putting together, multiple layers of tracking, you need everything to kind of to lock in, right? But when you're playing live with like just two other people, like a small trio or a quartet, whatever the number might be, pardon me, being able to kind of pull all that back, including like the insistence upon playing to a click track and not allowing the natural ebb and flow of the music to occur, it kind of can make it it can sterilize things too far by using like a metronome. This is like, I'm talking live, like we literally played the song through, we actually have videos of it too. Like every song we put out on this record, we have a video of. Like,
That's cool.
it was there you go.
Here's one of them.
Yeah, exactly. So this is exactly what you're hearing on the record, what you're seeing live. You know, I mean, obviously it is an environment that's procured. We did it at Tribe Sound Studios in Westchester, and it's very much like a sound stage. So it's like,
that's cool.
You know, completely,
Wait, so the sound is clean, but it's
perfect.
Still, still has that like organic.
Yeah, that's a great word for it. I like that. You know, organic, yes, and it's organic. It's familiar. It's personal. It's kind of in that thing. And what you hear though is literally what we played that take. You know, so like the solos might be different, the tempo might be different. You know, we didn't like lock into a metronome every time. It's just kind of how it came out. You know, and for better or for worse, like there are spots I can point to you on the record that were like, that's not exactly how we wanted to do it or whatever. But I think some of that, like some of the blemishes and the warts and stuff that are on it, make it very human, like you were saying. So yeah, I'm excited about it. I really.
It's like the antithesis of AI music.
Yeah,
it's a throwback. And I wonder if there's a trend going on because my sister just went to see. You guys, New Kids on the Block are still around. Like, there's just a lot of this. It seems like there's a segment of nostalgia music. Like a lot of throwback stuff.
I think a lot of people like that are middle aged now are like a little bit longing for the the days of music without auto tune and real instruments.
I'm going to see Everclear this Thursday night. So
yeah, I mean, I just saw the the dual feature at Broken Goblet of Mike Esterbrook and Cara Cartney. They did Oasis and cool. Cranberries. Like they just did like full sets of each, and it was great. And part of it is, of course, I think everybody has this nostalgia for when they were younger, the music they were younger. But I think a lot of it is actually that a lot of modern music just is terrible, and it's objectively, artistically terrible. It's like click tracky. It's all the same, like few chords. It's mostly like pop and hip hop and stuff, and you don't like. There's not much to it. I don't like. For instance, I do not understand the appeal of like a lot of the modern pop music of like Taylor Swift. Like I do not understand why so many people seem to,
ask my daughter, man,
go crazy. Like I'm like nothing in Taylor Swift's music catalog is at all appealing to me. Like I just don't get it. Like
nothing. Is your daughter?
She's 7. She's like
it's like those young kids. It's like the freaking Britney Spears of yesteryear.
Because it's not about the music. That's funny, the thing. It's about
the weird thing about like Taylor Swift too is like she's like not a spring chicken herself anymore. Like she's in her late 30s, like, and she's making these bops for these. It's weird.
The really young kids too. It's not even the like. So I have 2 teenagers. They could care less about Taylor Swift, but and my youngest daughter doesn't really care. But I run into it at the studio all the time. The 6 and 7, 8-year-olds are obsessed. It's wild.
They always want to ask. They're always asking Cara Cartney at her sets to play Taylor Swift.
Oh my God,
little kids. But and it's just. But it's not really about the music. It's like something else. It's pop. That's why I don't like it.
I mean, that's how it used to be with like some of those other like a Britney Spears or whatever. I mean, I was never really into it, but that's how it was.
But the thing is, but like Britney's icon. But I don't know. I think people give, and all the Swifties will hate me, but I don't care. Like people give way too much credit to Taylor Swift, and they I've seen people like shower accolades on her. I'm like, she's not very good in my opinion. Like none of her songs are very good. She doesn't really sing well. She doesn't perform very well. Like she's just mediocre to me. Very, very mediocre pop star, and I do not get it. And
she's dialed into like a notion of like I don't know what it is. Like it's like this.
She found her audience.
Live or lives like this. She's like kind of tapped into some kind of like consciousness, and I don't know. I mean,
she has some of her audience.
What she's doing. I mean, like I wish I was 1/10 as successful, as she is. But
she has her audience. But I just thought that the difference for me is like back in the day, someone like Britney Spears, like she was a very good performer and dancer, and like I don't know, it just seems like I'm sure they put in a lot of work for their performances and all, but Taylor Swift, it's just like I guess it's just the continuing evolution of pop music to just be these giant, like grandiose, like spectacles, and it's just the music just keeps getting to me less and less interesting,
Yeah.
more of something that's like not the focus. And like, I don't even know how many people were even involved in writing those songs. Like,
Do you watch or do you know Rick Beato?
yeah, Rick Beato, I watch his channel.
He's amazing. He's got really great ideas about music and about all kinds of things like music related. But he says the same exact thing. In fact, like he studied it, like, you know, from a musical perspective about the way that which pop music has like condensed the amount of chords that we use. Like we're not like, you know, most songs these days don't even wind up using 5 chords. Like they're using 4 chords or less. Like if you look at like what the Beatles were doing years ago, it's a whole. I mean,
Yeah.
how you feel about the Beatles, whatever. But you're coming from like the cornucopia of like musical possibilities that is like jazz, right?
Right.
Strip everything down to what we have now. You're right. There's been a condensation of what is quote unquote pop. Like, you know, you don't have people going from like a minor key to a major key in the middle of a song anymore. Like, you know, it's just not happening. You don't even hear modulation. Like we don't go from one key to a different key. Like it doesn't exist.
Yeah, and that's why like your music, especially this latest album, stripping it down, to me it's a return to more of that music that we used to have in the early 2000s or earlier. You know, like you're playing it live, you have the imperfections are on the album, but that's what gives music life. And this is why I just don't get. I don't. Not only did I not understand the appeal of most pop music, but because it's so artificial, it's so like it's like I don't even think it's healthy to be inundated by it. Like I wonder if it's even a good idea for like kids to just be so and have their musical experiences be so infused with terrible pop music, because it's like how it's not, to me it's not really very good art. You know, if you even count, it's a product. It's not really artistic in a lot of ways, and it lacks the humanity that music should have. And I don't like it. I don't like pop music. I've always hated pop music for the most part. Not maybe not universally, but because but like a lot of it, and especially anything that like little kids get obsessed with. I find it weird and off-putting, and I'm like, they're obviously targeting that demographic, and I don't like that. I don't like it when you're targeting children for something, because they're easily, you know, manipulated and you know, I don't like that. So in general, I'm very suspicious of adults targeting products at children. But
I mean, there are, that being said, like there are some folks out there right now making music that I feel like is really, you know, worthwhile. Like for example, Hosier, however you say
I love that. Yes.
Isn't he amazing? Like,
yeah.
Like, and what he's doing with music, like it is a throwback to like.
Do you like Kaleo?
I don't even know who that is.
Who's that?
K. I don't know if I say it correctly. Kaleo. You should check it out. It's got like Kaleo. Thank you. Not like not when he's on other tracks, but he has like a album. I don't think it's that recent anymore, but
this guy Kaleo.
Yes. But I don't know. I like his voice. So but yeah, Hosier is pretty.
There's
like a grit to it.
I'm a huge fan of Hosier. I can't say his name right. But
okay, yeah, I don't know anymore.
I don't know who you're talking about.
Oh, he's great.
He sings this thing called like the Work Song. There's like some other ones. That's
I've probably heard it, but don't know the name.
Yeah, he's great. And
since like, none of us can spell it, I can't look it up.
It's Hozier.
Yep, he's an Irish guy, and he comes to it from a whole different perspective. And
I dig it.
Definitely has an old world vibe to it.
Yeah, it has like a lot of grit to it, which I like.
Yes, but like it still has like these modern kind of.
This is a website.
It seems like him. Yeah,
that's weird.
He's a very interesting artist, I think, and like he's doing things like in the pop world that haven't been done in a while. You know, like he's using chord changes and kind of progressions that you don't hear all the time, and I think it's making him stand out. And I think a lot of artists are starting to recognize that they're like, we've gone too far into like the simplistic realm of like, you know, of music, and like bringing it back. Like let's bring in some of these, you know,
music stuff, actual music things.
Yeah,
about music.
I mean, look, it's gonna happen. Like you only have 12 notes, right? From
Yeah.
from C to C, right? You only got 12 possibilities, right? You
But-
know, it's going to happen that we're going to kind of, you know, ebb and flow. It's going to, you know, we're going to get simpler. We're going to get more complex. We're going to, you know, it's going to go back and forth. I don't necessarily love it when it gets so simple that every song is the same. And I don't know if this artist is a different artist than the one I heard before on the radio. It almost sounds exactly the same.
It's even worse now, man, because if you haven't seen, there's a bit of a controversy about, is Spotify creating these AI playlists or not? Like, there's all these playlists showing up on Spotify that all have strange names of people, and you can't find any history of these people, and all the music kind of sounds the same. And and it's like, so if you're a pop artist or any kind of artist, but speaking of pop, because that's like the really popular genre, right? You know, you're now you're making, if you're trying to do something new, something interesting, like you're describing, you're just going to be lost in the garbage heap of, now it's not just like regular generic pop. It's like literally computer generated slop. We call it AI slop nowadays, like in the computer world.
I know there's a term for it.
Yeah, that's what we've been calling it, AI slop. Like it's just this garbage that gets regurgitated and just floods. It's flooding everything. You see it on social media networks. You see it, but you're seeing it increasingly in music too. It seems, because you can just generate pop music. Like pop music is like, it's the easiest thing to generate, because you said it's gotten to the point where what is considered pop music is just very simple. Yeah, it's very narrow, very simplistic, and something that's easily replicated and remixed and stuff on a computer. And now you don't even need to have any skills to do it. There's a software you can just kind of type in, give me some music that sounds kind of like this, and it just gives you stuff. That's nuts. Yeah, it's nuts. Google demoed one. I remember at their latest Google I/O, they had a whole DJ thing, which is very cringe, by the way. Hilarious. You should watch it. But
so maybe that's why this other stuff is.
But yeah.
Interesting, or becoming.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So there are artists that are doing interesting things, and the problem is, I don't know how you get how do you find your audience, because all of the avenues now to get an audience, like Spotify and streaming services, and they all are algorithmically based, and this kind of somewhat goes back to the Anxious Generation Jonathan Haidt thing, like the social media and all is all algorithm based. So it's like, how do you get your original, interesting, kind of humane music in front of people that may actually enjoy it? Because that's not what the algorithm wants to do. Because what's going to be profitable is the cheap, mass-produced stuff that gets lots and lots of listens in like the background or something. And there's just so much stuff now that I don't know how you get through it. How do you get attention?
It's very difficult hard to figure out. Like, I mean, that's
there's
probably
no more like passing your demo to the to the
well,
scout.
I mean, I wonder though. You see the streaming services now kind of consolidating a bit, because it's been a giant money waster. Like they've been losing money, and they're actually kind of recreating the cable model with these bundles and stuff. I wonder if music will like kind of loop back in some way back to itself, because how long can you keep having the streaming services work the way they do?
Yeah,
when
that's true.
The only people that make money are the streaming services and the tiny fraction of huge artists, and maybe nowadays AI artists. I don't know. And in fact, so it's like, how long are artists going to do that? Because like what? The idea is I need to put it on Spotify and Apple Music and all, because otherwise no one will listen to me, but I'm not going to make any money from it. And so your hope is you make money elsewhere.
All like the industry, like people who I watch and follow, like they have gone to the point where they say like, don't release your stuff initially on Spotify. Like, wait, like put it out.
What do you do, like Bandcamp or something?
So you go to you release physical, you release Bandcamp stuff where people can purchase the stuff, at a specific time frame. Like let's say you want to release it, in August. Well, release it in those places. Earn whatever revenue you can from those purchases before you then make a month or two later put it on the streaming platform.
Oh, that makes sense.
So
movies
try to
are doing
get
what you can out of it before you.
It drives demand, and like it sounds like a good way to approach it too. For me, like I'm a pretty small fish in a very, very large pond, and it's a tricky thing trying to figure out exactly how to navigate, some of these things, especially when you're like making music that's, a little counterculture at the moment, very live and
Yeah.
very,
Yeah.
very personal. So you're right. Finding an audience is the whole thing. And I think this all the way back to the beginning of the conversation, I think it's about the space, like, the space that you create,
Yeah.
is going to be, is going to hopefully help dictate the crowd is listening, and if it's intentional or if it's unintentional, that's the spaces I'm looking for right now. The ones that are very, I can make very intimate connections with people, like the house concert, the small DIY venues, places like, craft industries like breweries, that kind of thing. Feels like a better place to at times, kind of pitch my wares,
Yeah.
So it's,
I agree.
another way of approaching it. But yeah, it's a weird time to be making music. I'm curious what, what bands that, were super famous back in the day would have done today,
Yeah.
would they still rise to the top, or would they be kind of lost in a sea of anonymity?
No idea. It's
know.
It's a
interesting.
big question,
So before I hop off, because I'm going to go teach a class in a minute, and
Oh, cool.
I can guarantee you people are going to start walking in soon. So who else do you like though, Jason? Because I'm always looking for music for, yeah. Who else
So
do you like?
I'm really into, like I said, really into Hosier. I've been listening to him a lot. There's this new, and this kid just came across my radar just the other day. I hate to say it was on Instagram, but then I heard one of her songs on XPN, and I was like, wow, okay.
Who's that?
Grace Bowers and the Hodgepodge.
Okay, cool. I will
She's
check
like,
it out.
it's like phenomenal guitarist, 18, 19 years old. She's like this young girl and backed by like a killer band. And she plays a mean guitar, and the songs are funky and they're a lot of fun. And so I've been really into that recently.
All right, you got to give me one more, and then I better
I
run
think,
before somebody walks in.
I mean, a lot of stuff I listen to right now. I mean, it's from the the college radio station kind of world where people still feel like places where music's still kind of curated, not done algorithmically in that regard. I look at people like for a local person who I really look up to a lot is Brittany Ann Trambow. Have you come across her?
Maybe loosely, but
Yeah,
I will certainly check it out.
She's in the folk world, but like I look up to her because she's created a space, and it's very much, her space is very much aligned with like the LGBTQ community. Like she's kind of in that world and that space, and like a lot of her following is in that world, but like she kind of creates this space for people, and I think that's like kind of the trick for artists. And have I figured out how to do it? Absolutely not. But I'm looking. I'm kind of recognize at least what seems to be working.
Well, Chrissy has to drop, but why don't we stay? If you want, Jason, why don't we stay on? We'll talk about the music business ideas a little bit longer.
Cool. Yeah.
Before we go.
All right, it was nice to see you, Jason.
Good
I'm gonna
seeing you.
go teach
Have fun.
tiny people. All right, see you.
Okay, hope you enjoyed part 1 of 2 of our special episode with Jason Ager. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and stay tuned for part 2, where Jason and I get really into technology and the music business. It's a really fascinating discussion. I think you're going to like it, and that's coming out next time.
Well,